to see that he didn't look ready to play at all. He has been the backup quarterback there for a while now, and it looked from the moment he ran out onto the field, it looked like they had no conceivable chance.
Yeah. What is going on in Cleveland? Are you not giving this kid a chance from day one? Why the hell did you trade up for him in the first place?
Sometimes an NFL career does not begin with fireworks. Sometimes it doesn't even begin with promise. And sometimes it begins with a reality check. For Shedeur Sanders, his long-awaited NFL debut wasn't a moment of triumph. It wasn't the first chapter of a legacy. It wasn't even a glimpse of his true potential. It was a complete disaster. Thrown into the second half of a tight game against the Baltimore Ravens, Shedeur looked overwhelmed from the very first snap. The confidence that he carried through college was completely gone. The swagger that made him a sensation was nowhere to be found. The polished accuracy he was known for evaporated completely under the pressure. 4 completions, 16 attempts, 47 passing yards, 1 interception, a blown 16-10 lead, and a final score of 23-16. It was the type of debut that makes the entire league raise an eyebrow. The type of performance that forces everyone, the team, the fan base, the media, and even Shedeur himself to ask the hard question. Is he actually ready for the NFL? Because this wasn't just a rough outing. It wasn't simply the nerves of a rookie quarterback. This was a game where Shedeur Sanders looked completely lost. A game where he looked unprepared, a game where the spotlight did not elevate him, it exposed him. But before we go deeper into what actually went wrong, before we break down the mistakes, the pressure, the timing, the processing, we have to understand something bigger. How did we even get here? How did one of college football's biggest stars in 2024 end up in this exact moment, thrown into a division battle, unprepared and completely overwhelmed? To answer that, we have to go back, way back, to the rise, the hype, the spotlight, and the fall that led Shedeur Sanders to his crossroads.
Sprinting, sets, delivers! Touchdown, Colorado!
Let's start here. Shedeur Sanders was never supposed to be a 5th-round pick. Not in his mind, not in his eyes of draft pundits, not in the eyes of fans who bought into the Colorado hype. Heading into the 2024 season, he was projected anywhere from the late 1st to the mid-2nd round. That's where his talent graded out. Clean mechanics, natural accuracy, a smooth release, confident pocket presence. The tools were kind of there. But the draft process did not really revolve around those tools. It revolved around his interviews. It revolved around his personality. It revolved around a quarterback handling hard questions, pressure, structure, and of course criticism. And by all accounts, well, Shedeur did not pass those tests.
They give players an install, and there are mistakes intentionally put in the install, and he didn't catch them and got called on it, and it didn't go well after that. You know, he throws a bad interception, and, you know, like they go in the meeting, they show the interception, and they say, what happened here? Well, you know, I like to get into a rhythm earlier in the game, and, you know, like they get into it over that, and his conclusion is, well, maybe I'm not a fit for you.
Multiple teams reportedly felt he came off arrogance, not confident, but just arrogance. In a room full of NFL coaches and executives, he wasn't selling himself, he was selling his image, his name. The watches, the brand, the endorsements, the stuff that made him magnetic in college did not translate well to rooms full of people deciding whether or not to hand him the keys to the franchise. Combine that with concerns about his ability to adapt from Colorado's improvisational offense, and well, he slid. Until he wasn't a 1st rounder or a 2nd rounder or even the starting quarterback for a team. He was a 5th-round flyer for the Cleveland Browns, maybe a developmental piece, a project behind a veteran in Joe Flacco, and then another rookie they invested in Dillon Gabriel. Shedeur Sanders walked into the NFL with the humbling wake-up call that few expected. For the first time in his life, he was not that guy. The Browns quarterback room became one of the most watched storylines of the offseason. Joe Flacco was the veteran, the Super Bowl quarterback, the steady hand. Dillon Gabriel, the rookie that got drafted earlier, was a pretty solid quarterback in college. And Shedeur was, I guess, the wild card. The whispers came out from camp were pretty interesting. Not bad, but not great. Reports said that Shedeur looked pretty decent. He processed faster, he was making plays, he made some tight window throws. By most accounts, he was playing pretty well. But Dillon Gabriel looked just as comfortable. More on time, maybe a bit more consistent. Shedeur outplayed Dillon in some flashes, but not enough to jump him and not enough to win the job. not enough to rewrite the depth chart. He was still the third string. And that stung, because Shedeur is the type of player who genuinely believes he's the best guy in the room. That mentality would carry him through college, but the NFL would prove to be a different animal. Then the preseason came, and Shedeur finally got his moments. Against Carolina, he looked amazing, crisp, confident, smart. The flashes were really good. But then his next performance against the Rams, he completely unraveled. Bad reads, miscommunication, throwing late, taking bad sacks. It was the type of performance that reminds coaches why preseason hype is dangerous. Dillon still won the job, and Shedeur, once again, was reminded that talent alone does not guarantee an opportunity.
Off the play fake, Shedeur Sanders into the traffic.
The Browns made a surprising move early in the season. They would trade Joe Flacco to division rival Cincinnati. That was supposed to open a door potentially for Shedeur Sanders, but instead, Dillon Gabriel would step right on in. Dillon wasn't lighting the world on fire, but he also wasn't sinking the ship either. 937 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Steady, safe, very conservative football. He's not a star, but a decent enough starter, I guess. Cleveland wasn't winning games and the offense wasn't playing well, but ultimately, Dillon was at least not completely hurting this offense. Shedeur stayed on the sidelines, the backup, waiting, watching, questioning his life probably, and then eventually the moment would come. Week 11 versus Baltimore. The Browns were up 16-10 at halftime. They were playing decent football. The defense was balling. Dillon Gabriel was distributing the ball decent enough, making some quick reads and ultimately avoiding turnovers. It wasn't flashy, but the offense looked kind of functional at times, which is exactly what the Browns wanted. Then when halftime came, he was ruled out with a concussion. And suddenly, Shedeur Sanders came in and had to play. Not a warm-up week, probably no first-team reps, probably not a game plan that was tailored to his skill, just a cold entry into a rivalry game against one of the best teams in football. But this is the NFL. Nobody cares if you're not ready. Every backup should be ready. What followed was rough, really rough. Shedeur finished the game 4 for 16, 47 passing yards, 1 interception, 16 rushing yards, and maybe the most damning, he had 0 confidence. The Browns' offense would completely collapse. Drives were stalled, the timing vanished, his decision-making was broken down. The swagger he was known for was not there. He had no poise. The accuracy was bad. It looked like a quarterback seeing a defense he simply was not prepared for, both mentally and physically. The Ravens would claw back, and the Browns blew their lead. And Shedeur's regular season debut ended with a 23-16 loss. For a player carrying his last name, for a player who fell in the draft because teams questioned his maturity, and for a player fighting the perception that he thinks he's ready before he actually is, this was the worst possible first impression. There were 3 glaring issues in Shedeur's debut. Number 1, his processing speed was not even close to being NFL ready. Baltimore showed different looks, they disguised their coverage, they sent unique blitz packages, and he panicked, he held the ball, he hesitated, it looked like he froze at time. That same calmness he showed at Colorado was completely gone. 2, his anticipation was not great. NFL windows open before the receiver breaks. Shedeur was waiting for his receivers to get open, and that doesn't work at this level. 3, his confidence evaporated the moment adversity would hit. This is surprising, man. His swagger is a huge part of who he is, but swagger only works when your brain is calm. He looked rattled from the jump, and he never recovered. Look at this play right here. It's 3rd and 8. The Browns are up 16-10. They're on their own 27. No pressure here. Just hit something underneath, take the punt, or try to convert a first down. Shedeur's in shotgun with 3 receivers to his left and David Njoku on the right. I want you guys to pay attention to the receivers first before we look at Shedeur Sanders. We're going to pause it right here. Look at how many guys are open on this play. David Njoku underneath on this little drag route, wide open, nobody within a yard of him. Isaiah Bond on this deep crossing route, has separation, has a chance to make a play. Now look at Shedeur Sanders, drops back, and you can immediately see him run back in the pocket. This is not NFL footwork. Yes, there's pressure in his face immediately, but guys, this is the NFL. They're going to send pressure. Shedeur does not get the ball out despite having 2 guys open. Sure, Njoku's probably not his first read, but you have to understand, if this is going to be a blitz, you got to get the ball out, even if it's just a throwaway. Throw the ball away or hit an open receiver. Let's also look at this next play. It's 3rd and 10 with 4 minutes and 44 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. The Browns still up 16-10. The Baltimore Ravens are lining up with 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. They're probably not going to send all 7, but more than likely they'll send at least 6 or 5. On this play, as you can see, Roquan Smith and Mike Green both drop back with 5 guys pressured. Shedeur's got to know immediately with that line of scrimmage, with how many guys are on the field, he's got to get the ball out fast. He's got to identify a hot read, somebody he can get the ball to just in case they do get pressure on him. Shedeur takes too much time here. He drops back, and yes, I get it. The offensive line is terrible here. He gets pressured immediately and gets hit as he's releasing this football, but you can't make this decision. Underneath, you have a wide open Malachi Corley, who probably doesn't pick up a first down, but at least doesn't give you an interception. Instead, Shedeur tries to force this ball into some sort of route to Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if it's a corner route or what he's running, but he tries to force it there, especially to the outside when Nate Wiggins is playing outside leverage. It's just a bad throw by Shedeur. Yes, I can excuse it a little bit because he's getting pressured, but again, you have to be able to identify these underneath reads, something to get the ball out quickly in case you do get pressure. I could go through the film, but this is just a small glimpse of what was a poor showing from Shedeur. Let's be clear, this is not the end of Shedeur Sanders. He didn't get a week to prepare, he didn't get starting reps, he did not get the game plan designed for him. Being thrown in at halftime against a defense that is starting to play a lot better is a nightmare scenario for any rookie. And if we're being honest, I feel like most rookies would have struggled as well. The problem isn't the poor performance, the problem is the narrative that's attached to it. When you're a 5th round pick who fell because teams questioned your attitude, when you carry the weight of being Deion Sanders' son, when you already have critics wanting you to fail, a performance like this doesn't hurt because of the numbers or the statistics, although it doesn't help. It hurts because of the perception. So, what now? In a weird way, this might be something good for Shedeur. I feel like he maybe needed the humbling, some more structure, and maybe a moment that would force him to reset, to grow, and maybe to evolve. Because the truth is, Shedeur has some talent. He's a pretty talented quarterback. Talent's good enough to be in the NFL for a long time. But talent is only the foundation. The NFL will demand discipline, precision, preparation, and of course humility. Sunday was not a failure, it was a teaching moment. A painful one, a loud one, but maybe a necessary one. The story is far from over, it hasn't even begun yet, but for now, Shedeur Sanders has a long way to go, and after his brutal debut, one thing is very clear: if he wants to become an NFL quarterback, he's going to have to earn it. For the first time in his life, that last name will not help him. It's on Shedeur now, and we're going to find out who he really is.